In today's video, I'm gonna share with you all the things I wish I knew before learning German. If you would like to learn German, the video is gonna be definitely helpful for you. But if you've already started and you are still a beginner or on a pre-intermediate level, I think that this video is gonna be useful as well. One more thing before we start. If you would like to progress in language learning with me, click the subscribe button because this is the way to see more videos like this in the future. With that being said, let's start today's topic. Number 1. Attitude. So if you already have a right attitude and you are motivated to learn German, you can skip that part. But if you don't, let me tell you why you may not have the right attitude and how to change it. The first thing I wish I knew before learning German is that it's not as awful or schrecklich as everybody says. The popular opinion about German is that it's such a loud and heavy language. But the truth is that the beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. So don't follow this way of thinking that something you want to learn or should learn is not beautiful, because it's gonna be hard for you to actually like it. Another thing is that having right attitude is also connected with taking the whole responsibility for your learning process. Don't think that living abroad or joining the language course will make you speak a foreign language without studying. Don't require that your teacher should teach you everything and do all the hard work for you, because at the end of the day, it's you who has to learn that. It's you who has to gain that skill. So take the responsibility for that. I wish my attitude was a little bit different at the beginning of learning German, but I think that the most important thing is to have self-reflection and always try to improve something. So let's say that you already have the right attitude, you are motivated to study and you want to learn German. Point number 2, grammar rules that you just have to know. Grammar is important, and there are some grammar rules that you just have to know as a beginner, because it will make your life so much easier. And those grammar rules are like an investment, because when you're gonna be on C1 level, you're still gonna need those things. And I'm gonna share with you the most crucial grammar rules right now, so you can note it down or take a screenshot. So the first and the most crucial thing to learn is the right position of the verb in the sentence. Let me give you some examples. Heute mache ich das Projekt. Ich mache das Projekt heute. Both are correct, because there is a clear structure of every sentence in German. But for example, when we want to use a specific conjunction, for example, weil, the verb will be at the end. So, let me give you an example. Heute mache ich das Projekt, weil ich viel Zeit habe. The verb is at the end. So, I would recommend you to look for those conjunctions and, learn them by heart. So, the second thing that you should know as a beginner is the way separable verbs work in the sentence. For example, we have a verb aufstehen, and this is a separable verb. So when we want to create a sentence with it, we're gonna say ich stehe through auf. So the part of this word is at the end of the sentence. So definitely check out the list of separable verbs and learn some of them by heart. Grammar rule number 3. Reflexive verbs. For example, sich freuen. When we want to create the sentence with this verb, we have to remember that this word sich is gonna change its form. For example, ich freue mich, du freust dich. Sie es freut sich. So remember about this. Number 4. Tenses that I would recommend you to learn as a beginner are present and perfect. So for example, ich mache das, ich habe das gemacht. Maybe later you can learn Präteritum or Futur 1. But for perfect, you will also need irregular verbs. And this is number 5. Learn irregular verbs. For example, gehen ging gegangen, helfen half geholfen, and so on. So point number 6 is to learn when to use dative and accusative. For example, ich bin im Büro, aber ich fahre ins Büro. Number 7, pronouns. For example, ich liebe dich, aber ich fahre dort mit dir. And this topic is also related to cases. Point number 8, conjugation of modal verbs. There's only 6 modal verbs in German: müssen, können, wollen, sollen, dürfen, and mögen. So learn how to conjugate them in present tense. So it's time for point number 9, and this point is maybe a little bit more advanced because it's about verbs with prepositions. For example, warten auf plus accusative. And let me show you how it works in the sentence. Ich warte auf deinen Bruder. Point number 10, conjunctive 2. This is the way to express would in German. And mostly we're gonna use würde for that. For example, ich würde das essen. I would eat this. But when we want to create a sentence with sein, haben or modal verbs, it's gonna work differently. For example, wenn ich gesund wäre, würde ich ins Gebirge fahren. Okay, so this is the last thing that I think you should learn as a beginner, and it's imperative. For example, mach das, do it. Or mach das nicht, don't do it. So those are the most crucial grammar rules to learn as a beginner. Maybe it may seem a lot, but as I mentioned, treat them as an investment because it will definitely pay off in the future. The thing I wish I knew about German, point number 3. Grammar rules that you should ignore as a beginner. I know that this point may be a little bit controversial because I basically tell you not to learn certain things as a beginner. But if you feel like learning more grammar rules that I mentioned in the previous point, don't feel stopped by me. But the things I'm gonna share with you right now are just the rules I would ignore as a beginner, simply because there are some other more important things for you to learn at that point. So I wouldn't learn endings of adjectives, because for that you need to understand cases first. I would also ignore passive voice, indirect speech, or pluscuamperfect, which is like past perfect, but in German. Whenever there is this grammar rule that you struggle to remember, that you feel discouraged by, I would recommend you to leave it and focus on your vocabulary and communication skills first, because the language is a combination of grammar and vocabulary. But you're not gonna use grammar when you don't have enough words, so focus on that first. Things I wish I knew before learning German. Number 4. Portmanteau words. I wish I could have memorized new vocabulary more efficiently at the beginning of learning German. The German language is known for long words that are hard to remember. But when we realize that those words are usually a combination of 2, 3, or 4, or even 5 other words, it's so much easier to remember all of them. So let me give you some examples. We have der Blumentopf, which is a combination of die Blume and der Topf. So now you remember just der Blumentopf, but you know 3 words: die Blume, der Topf, and der Blumentopf. And there are many words like this. For example, die Zeitung plus die Anzeige. This is the Zeitung Anzeige. Die Stadt plus das Zentrum. Das Stadtzentrum. Die Straße plus die Bahn. Die Straßenbahn. Der Apfel plus der Saft. Der Apfelsaft. There are also some nouns created by combining an adjective and a noun. For example, Rot plus der Wein, der Rotwein. Alt plus die Stadt, die Altstadt. And there are even some created with combining a noun and a preposition. For example, Mit plus der Arbeiter, der Mitarbeiter. Neben plus die Rolle, die Nebenrolle. And there are also some created with the verb. Let me show you. Schreiben plus der Tisch, der Schreibtisch. Essen plus das Zimmer, das Esszimmer. Instead of remembering one word, you can learn 2, 3 or even more at the same time. I wish I knew this before learning German, because it makes remembering new words more efficient, and then you can use them in different situations and occasions. Things I wish I knew before learning German. Number 5. Most frequently used words. In the beginning, I would focus on the most frequently used words, because they are the most useful in everyday situations, and I wish I had known them earlier. It can be even a list of 1000 words, and I think that this is a good starting point. Maybe it's not all you will ever need, but I would start with that instead of choosing words divided into categories, because it's highly unlikely that you will need a word, let's say, Regenwurm, when you don't know basic words. So if you would like to learn words divided into categories, then I would choose the most useful ones, for example, work, school, everyday life, maybe food, and also family and friends. If you would like to choose the method I mentioned, so to learn the most frequently used words, remember to always learn them in a context, because at the end of the day, you have to know when to use a certain word and if it's appropriate to the occasion. So just the translation may not be enough. The last thing I wish I knew before learning German: being systematic. So the last point is to be more systematic. I wish I had been more systematic at the beginning of learning German, because I would learn German faster in this way. And this is something that I recommend you to do. And it's all about having clear, organized schedule. So I would choose a few days in a week when I have more time, and I would create my own study plan to progress in language learning faster. And it's all about being disciplined about it. So those are all the things I wish I knew before learning German. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also check out my other videos, for example this one where I share my story of how I've learned 3 languages, and I speak 3 languages there. So thank you for watching this video and see you next time. Bye for now.